Well, I'm delighted to say here in the studio with us now is Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa Price. Great to see you as always, Jacinta. Senator, we've been talking about all the things going wrong with the Labor Party at the moment. The wheels literally are coming off. Everything from Annika Wells's expenses scandals to Tony Burke's secret meetings about ISIS brides. You've got Penny Wong, Katie Gallagher, the Mean Girls scandal, all that with Brittany Higgins, all that stuff going on. Jim Chalmers, the economy's tanking, Chris Bowen. I could go on and on we do about all the things that are going wrong. This is the time when the Liberal Party, the coalition, needs to tell the Australian people we will be the next government. How do you do that?
Well, I mean, the government is practically doing that for us, and we have to absolutely capitalise on that. I mean, these latest scandals are just demonstrative of the fact that this government is far more concerned with their own ability to stay in power than they are to serve the interests of Australian people. I mean, they're effectively destroying the place at breakneck speed. And Australians need to really take notice. You know, they need to understand that we simply cannot continue forward with Albanese at the helm and his government at the helm, because the cost of the continuation of the cost of living crisis, you know, our standard of living has dramatically gone south very quickly. The opportunities I know that existed when I was a young woman, you know, young people being able to own their own homes and get into a home and start a family, are just harder and harder to reach that dream. I know my children, my four sons that age from 18 to 26, find it much more difficult to get ahead in life, and those dreams are further out of reach for them. So we, as the coalition, need to start leading with conviction. We've established energy policy. I'm looking forward to being able to establish immigration policy, to put those bullets in the chamber and fire away and get this started.
Rita.
Well, on immigration, that is a huge issue. We're being told that One Nation's support is in large part due to the fact that an increasing number of Australians feel like the major parties aren't listening to them when it comes to immigration. When are we going to get a clear policy, and do you expect it to be significantly different to what Labor are offering? Well,
being a backbencher, I would certainly hope that it's going to be significantly different to what Labor have presented. That is how we win government. That is how we demonstrate who we are as the alternative government to the Australian people. You know, it is really important that we execute this argument, because it's not about who we're bringing in, it's about the numbers of people we're bringing in. And of course, we need people coming to our country who are skilled in the areas that we need them to fill the gaps, but we also need to make sure that they're going to be people that are adopting Australian values and want to be part of Team Australia and aren't wanting to be here to change Australia to meet their own needs. You know, that's the point is, as we've seen in News Poll, as we've seen in Resolve polling, well over 50% of Australians strongly believe that the immigration levels are far too high. And we're talking about mass immigration. I mean, 1.2 million people in Labor's first term, likely to hit, you know, close to 2 million by the end of this term. Our infrastructure can't handle it. There's far too much congestion, pushing up the price of homes. Labor aren't meeting the demands for building homes in this country. We've got to be building townhouses instead of tower blocks. It's just got out of control. And Aussies can see that. And I am truly, you know, I will be pushing from the backbench as much as I can, like I did with net zero policy, to drop net zero and to come up with a cohesive energy policy to ensure that when it comes to immigration, we do the same. And I know that Andrew Hastie and others, those of us sitting on the backbench, I was hanging out with Lou O'Brien at an event last night. We want to make sure we will apply the pressure, if need be, in the party room to ensure that we do land, you know, a cohesive policy on immigration, one that's going to support Australia.
Okay.
And yet, though, you know, you use the phrase mass migration, and I think most of our viewers here would agree that that's a perfectly reasonable term to use, and yet there's people in your own party room who say, oh no, you shouldn't be using that. Senator Andrew McLaughlin has said that. I think Andrew Bragg has said that. I think even, you know, Paul Scar, the immigration shadow, has hinted around that. How do you create this sort of cohesive policy where some people are talking about values tests, and the other side is saying you can't even really define this as a problem, particularly as now there's rumors of a split where, you know, some moderate teal types might even go and form their own breakaway organization.
Yeah, look, you know, I've been a sports person all my life and a team player, and I understand the importance. If you want to win the grand final, then you've got to behave like a team. And, you know, what is disappointing is some of the behaviour of colleagues where there's a tendency to throw your colleagues under a bus. It's not a good look as a coalition to the Australian people. We've all got to get on board. The facts remain. When it comes to mass migration, which is what it is, mass migration, when there's more people in your country, there is more congestion, there is more pressure on our infrastructure, on our services, hospitals, schooling. As I said, the government's not meeting demand for homes in our country. So these are all facts, and it is due to mass migration. So, you know, we need to be able to execute our arguments with conviction and with the facts coherently, and not sit back and be led by focus groups and polling. We need to set the agenda. We need to control the narrative, just like we did with the referendum, to say, look, we've got Australia's best interests at heart, and this is how we're going to demonstrate to you how we're going to fight for you.
Jacinta, what would you like to see the immigration policy be? Would you like to see an absolute stopping of immigration for the time being, a brief pause, a significant reduction? The coalition went with a kind of 25% reduction at the last election, which nobody was interested in or understood. What would you like to see as the immigration policy if it were down to you?
Sure. Well, I think, you know, to approach it in a common sense way, we need to look at, well, at this term, how many more people is Labor going to bring in? And if those are large numbers, I think we do seriously need to consider pausing in particular areas. You know, you've got temporary, you've got permanent migrants who are around, who have looking for refugee status, who family reunion, skilled. But we need to also look at the skilled migrants in areas that we need them, like for building homes, for instance, those that have those skills. But the regions, the Northern Territory, places like that, we have shortfalls across various different areas in terms of the need for skilled migrants. So it's about being smart as well and ensuring that we are sending newly arrived migrants to places like regional Australia and like the Northern Territory to help those economies and build in the regions. So,
but
you know...
what about values? What about the type of people we should be bringing into the country?
Look, absolutely. They have to demonstrate that they are willing to adopt Australian values and to lead with those values. We don't need any more division in our country. I mean, we've seen what occurred on the footsteps of the Opera House, and that hatred and, you know, the threat of violence toward certain parts of our community from those who ultimately we opened our doors to them, you know, as refugees in this country, and they should be adopting our values. There's no two ways about it, and we shouldn't be soft on that.
So how do you test for that? Because there's been different talk at the visa stage, at the citizenship test stage. I mean, what it suggests is that do you talk about preferencing people who come from countries that share democratic systems of government? Would you think about, you know, a change to the kind of the universalist migration approach that Australia has taken?
Well, I think we do need to consider whether we seriously do want to be taking in individuals from places like Gaza. We need to seriously consider that. We do need to be vetting, I believe, at the visa stage of individuals. As it stands, the Labor government's not doing a good enough job at vetting those who are coming to our country in the first place, and we need to strengthen that. And I would go further as to say, yeah, at the citizenship stage as well, to be sure.
Annika Wells was on Sky News earlier this morning and floundered hopelessly, trying to justify the extraordinary expenditure from New York, Paris, Thredbo, Adelaide. She's been everywhere on the taxpayer's dime. And the Prime Minister had a response to that on the ABC just not long ago. Let's have a listen to that.
The plan was that the minister was going to go on your plane, but was caught up with the Optus 000 problem here in Australia, then had to make a last-minute booking to get to New York. You or your office would have had to approve that, is that right? Did you?
Of course.
So you did approve this?
Of course.
You thought 34 grand for a flight was okay?
Well, we spoke. I didn't get all the receipts, David.
Oh, well, he didn't get all the receipts. There you go. He was also asked about the Threadboat trip where she had her family with her, and the taxpayers picked up the bill there. What's your view on that? She says it's within the guidelines. The Prime Minister says it's within the guidelines. Is that enough? Is that the end of the story, or does this deserve greater scrutiny?
Look, I think, this is demonstrative of the way in which Labor like to spend the taxpayer dollars and treat it like a slush fund for themselves. I mean, why couldn't she do her meetings via Teams with the UN, for example? Those exorbitant costs that were involved, she's now having to come clean to the Australian people on that. It doesn't pass the pub test, as far as I'm concerned. And, Australians are concerned as it is already. But this goes to the fact that they like to spend. I mean, they spent $500 million on a referendum. We know, over $90 million on a new bomb website. This government is at a 40-year high when it comes to spending, all-time high. And it is to that broader question as well. But absolutely, the Prime Minister, bless his cotton socks, he'll always stick up for his own team, but he needs to hold them accountable at the same time, because he is the Prime Minister. The buck stops with him, and the Australian people expect better.
And just briefly before we go, can the Coalition win the next election? Will Susan Lee still be the leader? What is the future of the Liberal Party?
Look, we absolutely can win the next election as long as we demonstrate that we are not Labor light, that we can lead with conviction and not being fear-led like, I think we were toward the end during the lead up to the last federal election. We were being led by focus groups and polling, as opposed to saying to the Australian people, these are the policies that we want to deliver on behalf of you to demonstrate that we have your interests at heart, demonstrate to the Australian people ultimately. At the moment, I believe that Susan needs to be given the opportunity to execute those arguments when it comes to energy policy, where we land with immigration, to demonstrate to the Australian people that she is of leadership material in that way that can go to the federal election. And we need to, as a coalition, start behaving like a team. Get behind one another, get around one another, boys and girls, just like the footy field, and get out there and, have those tough fights. And there is a wonderful freedom with being able to be on the backbench and do that. I am enjoying my time on the backbench, as I know others are. I'll fight from any position, obviously, because I love this country, and we've got to get out of the situation that we're currently in. We really do.
Hear, hear. Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, thanks so much for coming on Outsiders, and we'll speak again soon.